Welcome to workflow integration between WorldShare Interlibrary Loan and WorldShare Circulation. First, we are going to review the integration workflow steps, then how the integration is configured. Next, some policies to take into consideration for the integration to work well. Then some common exceptions and how you work around those errors if they do occur. Finally, I will share some tips and reminders for the integration and where to find more documentation. This is the integration flowchart for loans. It starts with the patron submitting the request through a supported discovery tool using the patron ILL request form. An important critical piece here is that the patron ID is required, since the patron ID or barcode is going to facilitate the integration between the ILL request and circulation. Once that request is submitted, it goes to the ILL staff to review. Now, it could also go directly to lenders if your library has configured full automation for pre-approved lenders. If you don't have this type of configuration set up, it's going to be in your new for review queue, which the ILL staff will review and send the request to lenders. Then that's where the integration happens. The integration is happening behind the scenes. The ILL system is talking to circulation, and what happens in that integration piece is a temporary item is created in circulation based on the title and the author, the bibliographic information of the item being requested. The patron ID is used to place an item level hold for the patron against the temporary item. Once the ILL request is filled by the lender and ILL staff receive it, then they mark it received, and we recommend replacing that temporary barcode that was automatically generated by the system with the WorldShare IRL request ID number to make it easier to track the ILL item. The circulation status changes to in transit, then ILL staff, probably in the ILL processing, will put a bootstrap around that item and send it off to the next circulation desk. The circulation team will then check in that item since there was a hold placed against that item. They're going to see that that hold notification is processed. They can put that item on the hold shelf, and knowing that the patron is being notified through your normal notification of your circulation policies, and then when the patron comes to pick up that item, circulation simply checks out that item, or the patron can check out themselves. Now let's talk a little bit about copies, because remember that integration only works for loans where there is a physical item that needs to pass hands. For copy requests, it really doesn't go through circulation. Patrons can still request articles through the supported discovery tool. The ILL staff are going to review that and send it on to lenders, or it will go out directly to lenders if full automation is configured. As soon as the ILL request is filled, the electronic copy is received. It's the ILL staff that then send on that article exchange or order electronic link to the patron to allow them to access it, so circulation doesn't need to be involved in the copy process. Let's see the integration workflow in detail. These are the steps you will follow, starting with the patron or staff on behalf of patron, placing the ILL loan request for the physical item using a supported discovery tool. For this example, I'm using WorldCat Discovery to illustrate this first step when the patron submits the ILL request, then following the next steps one by one until the item is returned to lender. Starting with step number 1, patron must be authenticated, to reach the patron ILL request form and place the ILL request. Patron starts with a basic search for the book title and adds author last name. You can see from the result that the patron's library does not own this title. Then the patron clicks the title to see the detail, and here on the right side the patron sees the button to request the item through Interlibrary loan. The patron clicks the button, then the ILL request form opens. You see that the bibliographic information is already populated on the form. This form can be customized by the library. And the patron ID must be a required field since this information is what will allow the integration process. Now the patron completes the information and submits the request. The patron then receives the notification that the request was submitted with the request ID number. Step number 2. Once that request is placed in the system, ILL staff at the library will find the request under Borrowing Requests accordion in the New for Review, Not Reviewed status, or be processed based on automation configuration. If in New for Review, ILL staff will open the request, select lenders, or let automation do that, and send the request. The system will confirm that the ILL request was sent, and it generates the request ID number. Then ILL staff review the ILL request under the Circulation section to check the temporary record status. In this example, the temporary record was successfully created. Step number 3. ILL staff can see on the ILL request that the temporary record was created. Going to WorldShare Circulation on the left side panel, from Discover Items, staff can search for the temporary item using one of the index options. In this example, the title, and can see the temporary record listed there under Details tab. Note that the shelving location is empty, since the creation of the temporary item through system integration does not supply a shelving location. It's critical that your circulation policies look at all shelving locations. Then, on the Hold tab, staff can see that the hold was placed for the patron. After that, in WorldShare Circulation, on the left side panel, from Assist Patrons, staff can search for the patron and see the hold request listed there. The system creates a temporary barcode for the temporary item. The hold status is as not ready. The patron can immediately track the status of the ILL request in their account under Holds tab. In this example, WorldCat Discovery. Step number 4. Once the item arrives from the lender, in WorldShare ILL from the left side panel under Borrowing Request, click the In Transit status to open the request. Click the Circulation section to update the item barcode using the request ID number as best practice. This provides a match point between WorldShare ILL and WorldShare Circulation. Then in the same section, click the Mark as Received button. The system updates the request status to Received. On the ILL request, on the Circulation section, you can see the circulation history updated to Pending, Running. This is just temporary. As you refresh the page, you can see the new status of Updated Successfully. Now you can print the bookstrap to place on the item and route the physical item to the circulation desk. Step number 5. Now you can see in WorldShare Circulation that the system has updated the barcode with the new information. And you can see in the patron account under Holds that the barcode is updated as well and the status changed to On Route. going to the circulation desk. The patron can see under the account that item is en route. Step number 6. Once circulation receives the physical item from ILL, then staff at circulation desk can check in the item, scanning or typing the barcode from the bookstrap with the request ID number. The hold request is generated with the patron information and can be printed and placed on a pickup shelf to be available to the patron. The patron can see on the account that the item is ready for pickup. Circulation desk staff can also see that item is ready for pickup from the patron's account. The system generates the notification message to patron according to your library notification configurations. Step number 7. Before making the item available for the patron to check out, circulation desk staff from WorldShare Circulation under the patron's account can manually adjust the due date on the bookstrap according to your library's policies by entering the barcode either on the Checkout or Holds window when using the calendar icon. For example, if the lender expects the item on a certain date, you may want 5 days processing time and making the due date 5 days earlier. This would give time to return the item to the lender on the ILL due date. Then make sure the new date is displayed on the patron's account. The item statistics will indicate the circulation rule applied to the checkout. The patron will be able to check the due date from their account. Step number 8. Once the patron returns the item, circulation desk staff check in the item. The system generates the routing receipt, indicating that the item needs to be sent to the ILL department. Staff print the receipt and follow the action, sending the item to the ILL department. In WorldShare Circulation, after searching and locating the item, you can see the item details and item statistics. Under Details tab, the status in transit. On the Statistics tab, you can see the last issued to the patron associated with the ILL request. At this point in the process, all system integration automated actions within circulation have been completed. Note that the status on the item is set to In Transit. The completion of the ILL request is done within WorldShare ILL to proceed returning the item to the owner. Step number 9. You find the ILL request in WorldShare ILL on the left side panel under Borrowing Requests with the Received in Use status. Open the request. Check Print Return Labels box located on the upper left side. Then click the Return Item button. The system will update the status to Returned. From the left side panel, click Print Queue and Return Labels, then select the options and print the return label. Affix the label to the package with the item and return to the lender. There are some one-time setup procedures that you will need to follow to have the integration configured for your library. Let's talk a little bit about configuration for the integration to happen. You need admin role in your account to be able to do the configuration for your library. First, you need to review your circulation policies and configure your shelving location and borrow institution patron account. Next, enable WorldShare Circulation integration with WorldShare Interlibrary Loan. Next step, you make the patron ID, called the barcode in circulation, a required field on the ILL patron request form, and this will be used to match the patron record. Once all the configuration is set, you then activate the integration. Let's start with the first step, policy considerations and setup. Review your policies for borrowing integration. From the service configuration under WorldShare circulation, review your circulation policies based on the chosen holding location and shelving location that will define on step 2. We will check most of these options in detail in this video, such as notifications, loan limits, and holds. Under WMS circulation in loans, you'll find your loan policy map, including the policies you define for interlibrary loan. Under loans, you'll find also your loan policy among other options. Then review your policies for lending integration. If your library is a lender in WorldShare ILL, first create a borrowing institution patron account in order to check out materials that will be lent to other institutions via WorldShare Interlibrary Loan. From the admin module on the top menu, click on User Management and select New User. Enter the required information, barcode, patron type to be staff, and home branch. Optional, enter an email address associated with the staff account to receive notifications about lending requests. Then click Create button to create the account. When lending materials, you will use this account to check out your items to borrowing libraries. When viewing the item in WorldShare circulation, the item details will include the request ID and the borrowing institution for additional reference. The next step is to enable WorldShare circulation integration with WorldShare Interlibrary Loan. From the service configuration, select WMS circulation, then Integrations. Under Integrations, select ILL setting. Under TPASA and WorldShare ILL, select Yes, next to Enable, and select the borrowing institution patron barcode to be ILL. Then use the drop-down menu to designate the hold location for temporary items created within WorldShare circulation, and select the temporary item shelving location from the drop-down menu. Optional, if patron fees apply, mark Yes for patron fees, then select the options from the drop-down menu. When this option is enabled, the system will access patron bills when the lending library marks a request as shipped, and the fee will appear in the Bills tab of the patron circulation record with the request ID under the bill note. After completing this part, save it for the system to retain your selections. The next piece you need to look at is to edit the ILL patron request form. In the service configuration, on the left side panel, WorldShare ILL and Request Forms. And the patron request form requires that patron ID be included as a required field to allow the integration. So here, I do already have patron ID included. I'm going to make it a required field. So check that box. If your library patrons don't really understand the patron ID as a label, you can change the field label to something more intuitive. In this example, I changed that to library barcode. After you are done, then click the Save button located on the lower right side. The last activation point is in Service Configuration on the left side panel under WorldShare ILL, then Circulation Integration. Go to the Circulation section and check the On box. Select the options for either borrowing or lending, or both, then save it to turn on the WorldShare Circulation Integration. So once you have completed the steps you outlined and reviewed, you are ready to begin using the integration. The workflow is going to be very similar to your existing workflows for filling and circulating borrowing requests, loans generated for your patrons. they will use the patron request form in the discovery tool. But then the process is going to be automated by providing an automatic creation of the temporary item and a placement of a hold for that patron associated with the item. You can find the documentation for the configuration pieces on our support portal at help.oclc.org. You will find the links to the resource on the same page for this recorded session. Let's talk a little bit about policy considerations. Think about how ILL is going to be processed in your library since it integrates with circulation. Do you want to restrict patrons from renewing without staff assistance? Probably. How about loan policies, loan and renewal periods, any fees and fines that are associated with ILL? You might be much stricter on your ILL loans than you are on your own material because it belongs to somebody else. Then patron notifications and hold policies. Let's check these options. First, let's look at loan limits. Generally, the most restrictive limits that match patron, material format, and location will be applied to the circulation transaction. We recommend that you rely upon existing loan limits. One exception is to consider whether you want to restrict patrons from placing renewals on ILL items they have out on loan. ILL renewals need to be processed by the ILL department. Patron renewals can be limited, still allowing staff to override a renewal after receiving a new date from the ILL department. With this policy in place, circulation staff will see the override acknowledgement screen when attempting to renew. Patrons will get an error message indicating that a limit has been reached and will not be able to renew the item without staff assistance. Of course, staff would need to work with ILL to request renewal to the other library. If granted, they could then renew with the new due date. Consider if you want different loan policies applied to items that circulate as ILL loans. Remember that the due date of the item is determined by the lending institution. So staff will need to adjust the due date of an item based on the lender's requirement. But you may want to establish some typical loan period as the default. We'll set ours to 3 weeks, knowing that in our experience, we usually get 4 weeks from the lender. Your billing for overdue fines may be calculated differently too. You may have higher overdue fines as an added incentive to get material returned on time, so you can get it back to the lending institution. Notifications should include a reference that the item in question is an interlibrary loan. Since the lending institution has the right to recall the item at any time, it's a good idea to include the recall notes and expect any recalls to be immediately returned. Our sample overdue notification stresses the importance of returning materials shared through interlibrary loan. It also reiterates our policy of no renewal of ILL items. Of course, if your policy is different, share it in the body of the message that will be sent with the courtesy due date and overdue notes. There are 2 hold policies: hold request, how long the system attempts to fulfill a hold request, and hold fulfillment. Once a hold is filled, how long will it sit on the hold shelf waiting for pickup? Both policies can be added according to your library's options. ILL requests follow the same process flow in circulation as hold requests. Patrons will be notified when the time period has been exceeded for filling a hold request. This time period for ILL will be the time from when the ILL request is sent to lenders until ILL staff mark that item is received from the lender. Depending on the request, an ILL request may take several days to weeks to find a lender and get the material. Since the hold request policy map does not take into account location, you may want to add some wording to your standard hold expiration notices, such as if you requested an interlibrary loan item, this item is still active in the system, and you will be notified when it arrives from the lender. Your ILL request has not been canceled. The notification sent as part of the hold fulfillment policy included a notice sent to patrons when the item has been checked in at circulation and is ready for them to pick up, and the reminder notes if they fail to pick up the item. As mentioned before, there are two hold policies, hold request and hold fulfillment. Both policies include notifications which can help keep your patrons informed of the status of their ILL request and actions they need to take. Next topic is about some exceptions and some ways that you can deal with the issues that might arise during the integration process. Let's briefly go over these exceptions. Verify that all setup and configuration steps are completed correctly. For example, if the circulation section is missing on the ILL work form, this indicates an activation error. Review the documentation and view the part of this recording that outlines the configuration process to avoid the configuration errors. When WMS circulation WorldShare ILL integration is activated, it requires patron barcode to be included in patron information. If your patrons are submitting requests directly from your supported discovery tool, the barcode is required to submit the web request form. But what happens if the ILL request is generated within WorldShare ILL? Staff entering requests will also need to include this data match point when placing requests on behalf of patrons. If the barcode is missing, the request cannot be sent to lenders. If you find that you need to place ILL requests for special programs or situations where a patron record does not exist in circulation, we recommend creating the patron record in circulation before submitting the ILL request. If the patron enters their barcode incorrectly and no matching barcode is found in circulation, the integration will fail. Unfortunately, if the patron incorrectly enters their barcode and the mistyped barcode matches another patron barcode, the request will be assumed to be placed for the wrong patron. Some libraries may wish to add a patron barcode verification step within ILL where staff checks circulation for the barcode and correct patron name. If found before the request is sent and corrected, no remediation will be needed. Creation of the temporary item and patron hold will also fail if the patron's record is expired. If their record is expired, no circulation transactions are allowed against their account. If you receive the message temporary item record failed to create exception, the first place to look is the patron record. Check that they do not have a manual block against their account and that their circulation expiration date has not been reached. If you find such blocks and library procedures allow, remove the blocks and retry within the WorldShare request work form circulation section. On rare occasions, the automatic creation of the temporary item circulation may fail. One known cause is if the author field is populated with more than 250 characters in the WorldShare ILL request work form. This information is pulled from the WorldCat bibliographic record. The information that is transferred to the temporary item is title, author, and material format. So if there is an exception due to bibliographic information, it will be in one of those fields. Edit the request details that may be causing the exception, save the request, and retry the circulation integration. Think of all the loan policies and loan limits associated with your circulation configuration. At any time, a request to place a hold could fail due to exceptions to these policies and limits. For example, if you place limits on the number of holds a patron can place, the attempt by the system integration to create the hold may fail. Or if you block patron activity based on outstanding fees, they may be blocked. If you see the temporary item record failed to create exception, in the circulation history, review the patron record and your policies to see if any exception is causing the hold request to fail. You can correct the reason for the block in circulation and retry. Think of any acknowledgement screen you may encounter when placing a hold for a patron as an exception that the system integration between WorldShare ILL and circulation will also encounter. In this example, you see that the patron has outstanding bills which exceed our maximum bill limit. The hold expiration period is set within your WMS circulation policies under the hold request policy. This policy sets a default time limit of how long the system will look to satisfy the hold request. If you have a short time period set, for example 2 to 3 weeks, it's possible that the ILL request is not filled within that time period. The initial hold request is placed at the time the ILL request is sent to lenders. The hold is filled at the time ILL receives the physical item from the lender. If the hold expiration period is met before the item is received, the hold is no longer active, and therefore the system integration is not able to update the hold request to full field. Since the temporary item still exists in circulation, you can place another hold request for the patron in circulation. Then retry in WorldShare ILL circulation section. The automatic system integration works when there are no circulation exceptions and everything is properly configured. The system does not make assumptions on override that requires human attention. Generally, if you correct the override condition and retry, the process will continue. Even more important to remember is that regardless of the ILL circulation integration, no ILL requests are harmed in the process. This simply means success or fail in the integration piece. The ILL request is submitted and sent to lenders for processing in the same timeliness you have relied on in the past. When the integration connects, it saves circulation time since the temporary item record and patron hold request is automatically placed. You can correct the integration errors as reviewed, or you can place the bootstrap on the item in ILL and get it to circulation for processing. Circulation staff use the information on the bootstrap to determine if the patron needs to be notified of pickup automatically. If a hold slip is generated, circulation staff know the patron will be notified for pickup. If the checking results in a routing slip back to the WorldShare ILL location or a reshelve available status, circulation staff know they needed to check the patron record and place a hold for the item and check it in again, generating that hold slip. Determine in your library the best practice for working with these exceptions, correcting them before the physical item is received at circulation for check-in, or set up procedures at the circulation desk where staff verify items coming from ILL should generate a hold slip for the patron who requested the item. Some final tips and reminders to consider. Use your WorldShare request ID as the barcode to make it easier to track the item even after the ILL request is closed. Remember that as soon as the ILL request is closed, the patron identifiable information is scrubbed for privacy purposes. But you can use WorldShare circulation to track that information. Consider your general hold policies with your ILL policies and customize the notifications. Consider patrons can use their account to check what is available and they will receive notifications. You can find additional help in our support portal at help.oclc.org, where you can find the documentation and additional training materials related to this recording and all things related to WorldShare Interlibrary Loan and WorldShare Circulation Integration. Thanks for watching.